I want to complain. I want to complain about this pandemic that we find ourselves in and how it is derailing our lives. I want to complain about having to wear a mask all the time. Yes, I know it's the best thing for us all to do, but wearing a mask out in public, it makes me feel guilty that I might be contagious, and I'm not. Or it makes me feel paranoid that you might be contagious. I want to complain about wearing this mask, and I want to complain, about those who don't. I want to complain about being restricted to my home and not being able to go out to eat or gather freely with friends. I want to complain that my daughter, who's a college senior, is missing out half of her final year. She's been stuck at home with her parents for 7 months, with at least 3 more to go. I want to complain about church. Church is a social community. The very word church is from the Greek word ecclesia, which means assembly. But we haven't assembled in months. And I have no idea when we might again. I want to complain about having to rethink everything that we do here because it is exhausting. I want to complain about being forced to become an audiovisual expert in the anxiety that this technology brings each Sunday with its added layers of complexity. I mean, you don't just turn this stuff on and forget about it. There's always something that's going to go wrong. I miss the days when the only technology was just a microphone. And when that didn't work, I just talked louder. I want to complain that in the United States, over 7 million people that we know of have gotten ill with this coronavirus. I want to complain that over 200,000 people have been taken from us too soon by this disease, and the numbers keep rising. I want to complain that there are some in this country who share this sentiment that because, many of those who have died were elderly, that their loss is not significant, that somehow they're expendable. I want to complain about the growing anxiety I feel over the uncertainty of this situation. I want to complain that our nation's leadership, the people we elected to steer the ship of state through perilous waters, is not doing more to provide its guidance to its citizens. The information and the recommendations that we do receive are often inconsistent and contradictory. I'll stop there. That's enough complaining for now. And I do know that we share a number of complaints in common, and that you have your own as well that you could add to this list. As I read our scripture for today, you may have noticed that it contains a bit of complaining. The Israelites have been slaves in Egypt for generations, but God hears their voices, God hears their cries, and God leads them out of Egypt and leads them to the promised land. But their journey to the land of promise, it takes them through the wilderness. And this time in the wilderness, 40 years, it becomes a time of formation for the Israelites. It is here that they learn to be God's people. They learn here what God expects of them. They learn that they can trust this God. There are, however, numerous stumbles along the way, and one of these takes place in our reading from Exodus. With Moses as their leader, God has brought these people out into the wilderness, but the people complain. In this particular instance, they complain that they do not have water to drink. And they go to Moses and they demand that Moses do something. And they yell at him and they say, "Why? Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Are you trying to kill us and our children and all of our livestock with thirst?" Now, this story is one of several in this wilderness saga that recalls an occasion when the people complained. They complained here that they don't have enough water. In other places, they complained that they don't have meat to eat. And then they complained that they're tired of the food that God was bringing them each day. They even in one place complained that there are too many snakes out in the wilderness. These stories are certainly not flattering to the Israelites. These people had been slaves in Egypt. They had been forced to toil under difficult tasks. But God hears their cries of anguish and, with the assistance of Moses, leads the people out of Egypt. On the way out, they're chased by the Egyptian soldiers. But their chariots, the chariots of the soldiers, get stuck in the mud. And the soldiers are drowned when the Red Sea collapses on them. And then, no longer pursued by the Egyptians, the Israelites are now free to embark on a journey that will take them to the promised land. But the going's not easy. They are there in the wilderness, which is a harsh, nowhere place between what they were and what they will become. A journey of pain, but a journey of promise. The wilderness often lacks the food and the water and the comforts that they desire. And all the people have is themselves and God. And so they push on. They're like their ancestor Abraham, who was called by God to an unknown future. They push on. And their journey across the wilderness, and they come to this place known as Rephidim, and they set up camp there. But why they chose this place, well, it's something of a mystery. There was no water to be found. Maybe there had been water and it dried up. We don't know. But it seems like a poor decision to establish camp without a good supply of water. And because there is no water, the people turn to Moses, and they demand that he do something. And Moses asks, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" Moses clearly believed that they should put themselves in God's hands, that God would care for them. Moses regarded this current lack of water, well, it's just a non-issue, really, because Moses had faith in God. But the people persisted, and they complained, and they confronted Moses. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Are you trying to kill us with thirst?" So finally, Moses turns to God, and he asks God, "What am I going to do with these people? They're about to stone me." So God gives instructions to Moses. He tells Moses to travel on ahead of the people. Take with him some of the elders of the people. And also take that staff that he used back in Egypt, the one that he used to strike the Nile River. And it turned the water into blood. And it killed the fish. And it made the water undrinkable. And God said, take the elders and take that staff and go to the rock at Horeb, and I will be waiting there. And strike the rock with the staff, and good water will gush forth. Moses follows these commands, and the water appears, just as God promised. And Moses, he gives that place a name. He calls it Massa and Meribah, which are names which sound like the Hebrew words for quarrel and test, because it was at that place that the people quarreled and tested the Lord. They complained. They demanded to know, is God with us or not? And that is truly the question that is at the heart of this incident. The question is not, are we going to die of thirst in the wilderness? The real question is whether or not God is present with us. God exists, yes. But is God really here watching out for us? Does God care for us? Does God hear our complaints? Is God there? And when the people demand water, it seems that they're quarreling and testing God. Show us, they seem to be saying. Show us that you are here. Show us that you care for us. And when we complain, that's usually the heart of our complaints as well. Is anyone there? Does anyone care? And this is the question that follows us around every day. Is the Lord among us or not? I wake up, I go through my day. I go to bed, I ask, is God with me? And if things are going well, I'm probably going to say, sure, God's right here with me. But if things are going poorly, if I feel that I'm in the wilderness, lost, alone, afraid, I might be tempted to say, I'm not sure if God is with me, because I expected things to be better than this. And it's the wilderness experience that tests us. When we are confronted by a troubling diagnosis, or a job loss, or the death of someone close to us, or a surgery, a disability, a change we didn't anticipate, a pandemic, any number of occasions when our soul becomes dry. These are our wilderness moments. And so we read this story and we wonder, should those people really be challenging God like that with their complaints? Is it okay to complain to God, or should we just keep quiet? Well, the answer is yes, it is okay to complain. And it is okay to complain against God. Your complaints are not going to break God. And if we don't believe that God is with us, well, then even why bother to complain at all? For the past couple of weeks, I've been reading up on complaining because of the many complaints that are crowding my own soul right now. And I found that there's a great deal of academic and scientific research on the subject of complaining. And the consensus of all this research is pretty clear. It says, if done correctly, complaining can be healthy. There's even an art to how one should complain. Human beings, we're social animals. We like to be around one another. However, we're not very good at conveying our emotions to one another, with sharing our feelings in a helpful way. But we are good at complaining. And complaining really becomes another way that we can release our pent-up feelings. Complaining is okay. You just don't want to get into the habit of doing it all the time. One researcher puts it this way: the more you do something, the more entrenched that path becomes in your brain, and then the more you continue to do it. And this includes complaining. We don't want to become entrenched complainers. As social animals, complaining can be a useful tool in bonding. A shared complaint strengthens a relationship. Shared complaints can help us process our emotions, such as stress and frustration. Complaining can be broken down into 3 types or 3 practices. And they are venting, problem solving, and ruminating. And it's healthy if you are aware of which practice that you are engaged in. We all know what venting is. It's when we just need to let off some steam. We vent when we say something like, you know, it really bugs me when people let their dogs poop in the park and don't clean it up. If we say it, we get over it. If we feel a little better, we vent. And researchers point out that when you vent, it's especially helpful if you inform the person that you are speaking to of your desire to vent. Then they know what to expect and how to respond. Many times we've said that, I need to vent for a moment. And my wife will say, okay, and give me 5 minutes. Now, the second category of complaining is problem solving. And this one is the most productive. We vent, but then we choose to take action. About the dogs in the park situation, we might say something like, persistent puppy poop in the park is my pet peeve, but I have an idea about how to address that. That is problem solving. That is helpful. And the third category of complaining is, well, the least healthy, and it is called ruminating. We also call it dwelling or wallowing. And that is when we get stuck in a pattern of ceaseless griping. If you come to me and you say, I need to vent, I will gladly listen. But if you are someone who regularly spews out litanies of misery for hour after hour, I might choose to steer clear. Now, I started off this morning with a list of my own complaints. And although I am serious about every one of these, I do see them with perspective. I recognize that there are so many people with legitimate complaints which are far greater than my own. But still, like everyone, sometimes I need to vent. And there's nothing wrong with that. When kept in control, complaining can be a healthy exercise, sometimes even productive. And as we see in the story of the Israelites in the wilderness, complaining can become a tool for change. The people, they complained to God about the lack of water. One might even argue that they bonded in their complaint, their shared experience of being thirsty. And they came together over this injustice, and they spoke out until this injustice was righted. God heard their protest, and God delivered water. Now, we can look at their story, and we can say that those Israelites lacked faith in God. They doubted that God was there to care for them. Or we can turn the story a bit and say that, those people did have faith. They complained to God because they had faith in God's power to bring about the change they requested. And I think we can learn from the Israelites. I'm not suggesting that we all start complaining about everything, but that we do have faith in the ultimate power in our lives, that in times of need that we are free to turn to our Maker and our Creator, that we turn to the one who led those people out of the wilderness and led them through the wilderness with a pillar of fire and smoke, who stayed with them through their complaining. That we have faith in the one who is the great I am, who is the source of true change, that we have faith in the one who is love, the one who hears us, our God. Amen.